And so Craig's coming.
I guess not. I thought it wasn't, but it wasn't. It was the She
So
broke
I
down
just
for it.
go on to
Whatever.
my inbox. Sorry,
Yeah, if you go to your inbox and I'm doing Joni@northovencity.org.
there's my mouse.
oh, cheese balls are so good.
Really?
Yeah, well, they're total poison.
I know.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Sorry, actually, like, pots, no, crunchy cookies.
Already.
It'd be about time for me to settle down. Yeah.
Boy.
So we're live on
Yeah, so
YouTube.
I told my friend.
Okay.
That was awesome.
Okay.
Welcome to the November 1st, 2023 North Logan City Council meeting. We will excuse Craig, who's on a fire call right now, and Roger, who is traveling. We will begin with the pledge led by Buzzy, after which Emily will give our convocation.
Will the audience please rise and repeat after me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yikes. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee for this day. We thank thee that we could gather together as a city council to discuss the issues facing our community. Heavenly Father, we ask a blessing on Craig at this time as he answers that call, that he will find safety and be able to travel to us safely. We ask a blessing on our citizens at this time, that we can have their best interests at heart and that we can make decisions that will help our city. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Emily and Buzzy. All right, I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. We do have some minutes from our October 4th and October 18th city council meetings, in addition to our October 18th closed session minutes. I would entertain any discussion about edits to those or a motion to accept those.
I'll make a motion to accept those.
Okay, motion by
Second.
Joni, second by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Alan, would you mind going over follow-up on issues from previous meetings and review of action items?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Jumping down through here, we'll go over the Civic Center design process later on in this meeting. HR focus, there are several trainings coming up in the next few months, along with the employee Christmas party. Communication committee, we'll talk about that a little bit tonight with SB 174 overview with Scott Perch from the Community Development Department. And go over some of the things that we do as far as communication and basically discuss ways we can improve. Jumping down through here, water, the well house is going into place. They're finalizing several of the water model and master plan agreements. Master plan updates right now. And they're pretty close to that. And then the lead and copper rule sampling. You'll have some information regarding that in the newsletter. And there are links in the newsletter to go and find out more information regarding lead and copper. The good news is in North Logan, we don't have a lot of lead and copper. We already sample for it as a city. This is another element that the EPA is mandating for individual homes and laterals. Jumping down through here, sorry, we have a lot of copper. We don't have a lot of lead, but there isn't copper in our water. Sorry, I should clarify that. Sewer metering, they're going around. That's part of master plan. That's associated with our bond. Sorry, it's more of a bond or a loan with a DEQ. For our trunk line. That's a portion of that in order to receive that. So that's one thing that they're doing right now. Streets, the roads project, that's referring to the Weiberg subdivision. And then ongoing asphalt work and crack seal right now. Stormwater, they wrapped up the annual report and they'll be sweeping a lot of the roads in the next few weeks. You'll see with all the leaves coming down. To keep those drains clear for the winter months. And so they try and keep ahead of that.
So I have a question on that one.
Yeah.
Someone emailed, or one of their comments in the survey that we did, to say that they actively put leaves in the gutter in anticipation of the sweepers coming by. Is that reasonable? Is that discouraged?
So if you want an actual letter of the law from the state, an adjacent city does that and they push things into the gutter and they come along with a massive crew to clean that up. That is actually highly illegal. You are not allowed to push leaves into the road or into the gutter. Those leaves end up making their way into the water system, which is the number one thing that they do not want in the water system, in our stormwater systems.
Okay.
So I do not know how another city gets away with that. Please do not push any leaves into the road. Just sweep them up, put them in your green waste, your own personal green waste, or take them to the green waste of the Logan landfill.
Okay, thank you.
Is kind of the advice there. Jumping down through here, engineering. There are 2 or 3 different studies going on right now. We're working with each one of those. Jumping down parks, they're just blowing out the irrigation system. They've had a very busy last few weeks. Going through all the pumpkin events with the rec department, and going through the pumpkin walk. Parks is basically the department that manages that, and the pumpkin toss. So hats off to them. Those events were widely attended. Jumping down through trails, the BST, we're working one with our own grant in that regard and putting that together, but we're also looking at applying with 2 other cities, Hyde Park and Smithfield, in that regard, and we'll see what we can put together working with the county. Recreation, they're basically gearing up for Wolfpack basketball. All of their pumpkin events are wrapped up, luckily. It's been a very busy Pumpkin Days month, all of October. So they're just getting caught up right now. They'll start a lot of soccer at the HSC, and they'll do a lot of basketball coming up in the next month. Jumping down through here, we will talk with the police department regarding cameras. Those are cameras in some of our facilities, outside of the facilities, so in the parks and other areas, to really deter any vandalism. And so we're going to work together on that, make sure we have a good system there. Jumping down through here, community development, we'll go over a few things tonight. One is Senate Bill 174. We'll talk about that. That's development review amendments. And then the general plan, Scott can probably give an update on that as well at the end of the meeting. But we have the rewrite. And so there'll be a steering committee. There'll be several surveys going out to solicit public feedback as part of the process that we go through. So we need to basically let the citizenry know, let them know that you'll have one survey and multiple surveys. They need to be involved. If they want to provide input, that is the time to do that. That'll guide that process. Treasurers switching over to waste management, that's been a chore. And hats off to everyone involved in that process to put that together. That was a huge undertaking. When we found out we wouldn't have garbage services, and then all the cities coming together who were part of that waste consortium, and then selecting waste management and then getting that up and running. So thanks to each of those departments for doing that. Human resources, we have our URS audit. We just went through our fiscal audit with the recorder, which is all wrapped up. And so they'll probably report on that in they usually report at the end of November or mid-December on that audit to the city. Things are looking good. Thanks to Scott, the recorder, and then the other associated departments that were involved in that. The Harry Potter party was this Monday. We have a new director, Trent Bateman. It sounded like it went off very well, very highly attended. Great job, the library. Police, there's a lot of training of the new officers, which I understand is going very well. And the department is doing well in training everyone, getting them up to date. It's a task, but from what I hear, it's very positive right now. So thanks to the police department. Fire department, the station should be done, their new station in Logan, by early January. They should be ready to move into that new station. It's state of the art, fantastic, should help with response and employee training, everything across the board. And then there are things that we've talked about with capital and how we go through that process of potentially replacing some of the engines, or one engine in North Logan City. And Logan basically has come up with an option for that. We'll go over that in the coming weeks and months. And so I jumped through several items quickly. Are there any other questions regarding any particular item?
Any questions from the council? Okay, thanks, Alan. We'll now move on to recognition of an exemplary staff member. This week, we are recognizing Ryan Campbell, our Parks Division Manager. For the 40th anniversary of the North Logan City Pumpkin Walk, Ryan Campbell and his crew went above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that it was a spectacular event. They worked countless hours and late nights to assist with setup and daily operations, as well as cleanup of the pumpkin walk. Ryan made sure that the pumpkin walk was safe, functional, and exciting. Ryan's a fantastic member of the staff and always goes above and beyond to make sure the work is done correctly and up to the North Logan City standard. Ryan is a great benefit to North Logan City, and we look forward to many more pumpkin walks to come. I'll add to that perhaps, in my view, the biggest contribution that Ryan's made to the city is in his pickleball skills. We together defeated all of the other city employees that we challenged. So
Never took
that
on
will-
Emily and I.
Okay, first of all, we ran into
Never
each
took on
other.
Emily and I.
Ryan, your
Started
game?
playing.
Just say the time,
Anytime.
Ryan.
Let's do this. Let's
And-
light that
and
up.
When you lose, you got to fill one of these out for Emily. That's the.
Thank you.
Okay.
We really appreciate Ryan, and he's really second to none as far as parks, and we really appreciate him as an asset to our city. So let's give him a hand of applause. Okay. We are going to move the fire department presentation
2:15.
to the 15th. So we'll do that next time. So with that, we'll move on to our action items. Our first matter of business is considering a resolution to amend the master fee schedule as it relates to construction related fees, encroachment permit fees. Jordan, do you want to speak to this? It really should be familiar to the council. We discussed this at length last time. We just had a few things. I think it was Buzzy that pointed out a redundancy in that.
And I don't want
better
this to go
take
to
it 'cause I don't got-
Buzzy's head. Thanks for catching those items.
First time this year I've done something positive. It took till November.
Yeah, these are just the encroachment permit fees. It sounds like last council meeting, you went over some of the items that needed corrected, but we corrected some of the verbiage in the new road, less than a 3-year, and added that the calculation of 1650 per square foot of asphalt disturbed. So how you get that is if your cut is bigger than 300 feet, then the 350 is, or the 1650 is applied. In an existing road, it's 350 that's applied.
Beautiful.
And that's what takes you to that same number as the 5,000. So that's when you break into the next category of price.
So just a curiosity,
Yeah.
you know how they've cut across 3100 in Hyde Park?
Yep.
Do they have this sort of fee in Hyde
I do
Park?
not know if Hyde Park has one.
Okay.
They typically haven't, but they may now. I don't know.
Just curious.
If that
I'd
were
also like
in
that to
North
not be
Logan,
closed.
It would be applicable.
Yeah.
You know, if we didn't have those stop signs that direction.
That's so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's pretty clean fee, but anyway.
okay,
we did
great.
this quite a bit.
Any questions for Jordan on this?
I think the
love-
additions are awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joni.
I know what boring means, but it's kind of funny to a boring permit fee.
We don't like it.
Aren't
either.
they all? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion on this.
So motion to approve the resolution to amend the master fee schedules as it relates to construction related fees, specifically encroachment permit fees.
Okay, motion by Buzzy,
I'll second.
second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion
Thank you.
passes. Thanks, Jordan. Okay, now we'll move on to consider approving a master site signage plan and development agreement for the Walmart frontage with Highway 91. This master site signage plan and development agreement represent a negotiated coordination of signage interests along Walmart's frontage with Highway 91 for both the North Logan City Gateway entry sign as well as new signage for the Walmart property. Tell me off the bat, are they going to do a Sandstone sign?
Who gets to keep that one?
Us, yeah, no,
Lindsay.
if we want to keep it, we
We'll put that
can.
up in your garage.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So this is not something we see every day, and this is a great opportunity for the city to address a goal that we've had for quite some time to have better wayfinding, better representation of our entry corridor on the highway into town. So what happened was Walmart, they started working on a few site improvements for their main store. As you guys know, they did a little bit of a facelift on the outside, did some renovations on the inside, did some improvements. Which looked great, but they're also working on a fuel station, and that's what you'll see behind that fence on Main Street there. Yeah, a new gas station. So what they're looking at is as part of that project and their renovations, they're looking to improve their signage along the frontage, which would be expected, and it looks like they had some good ideas. But what the city also recognized was as they came in to start these projects, that southwesternmost, if that's a word, That corner there on their frontage with Highway 91 is actually what we've identified as a very good, if not the only opportunity or the first opportunity for a welcome to North Logan City sign. In this exhibit, you can see a darker black line just to the south of Taco Bell. That's actually the municipal boundary between us and Logan City to the south. And between, that boundary line and along the corridor, there's not really a great opportunity from a real estate perspective, just a square footage perspective to fit a sign in. So the first opportunity is that southwesternmost corner of their property. And of course, Walmart, when they were looking at their process, their initial thought was they would like to put that monument sign in that location as well, because that's the first opportunity to capture northbound traffic attention and to bring people into that southernmost entrance. And so we chatted with them. We said, hey, it looks like we have some competing interests. You guys own the land. Is there any way we can work together on something where we're not stepping on each other's toes? We have an aesthetically pleasing entry corridor. And we also denote when you're entering North Logan City, which has been a shortcoming that we've recognized for many years. So, Alan, you want to skip down a couple of exhibits here?
Yeah.
What we did is we said, hey, how can we share this frontage and how can we coordinate our signage so we're not competing and it's not looking cluttered and having too much attention to too many items. Yeah, do you want to just zoom in on that bottom page right there?
So Scott, the pylon goes away. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah, so that pylon is what we call legally non-conforming. We don't allow for pole signs anymore. So that existing pylon would be removed. And we've gone through some past design work to kind of envision what a new North Logan City sign looks like. So what you see here in this exhibit is a design that was put together by your previous director for planning, and that's kind of design language we ran with just for an example here. But what Walmart's concern is losing that corner was hard for them to swallow because of their new fuel business and some of the renovations that they're doing to their main campus and their existing pole sign, which is in that location. So they'd be losing that corner. And so I said, let's come to the table. Let's find a way to maybe work around, find a win-win here. And as we chatted through that, the first thing that they were concerned about was making sure that folks understood what the fuel prices were from far enough away that they can make a decision to turn into that south entrance, which, that's the new business on the corner. They want to make sure they don't lose that opportunity, which is totally understandable. I think most folks in town recognize that there's a bit of a fuel price war going on between Costco and Sam's Club and anybody who's got fuel, right? And so I think that was one of their biggest concerns. And so we worked with them to say, well, why don't we put a reader board up on the canopy so that you can still have that height and that recognition closer to that corner. And why don't we have maybe an opportunity for you guys to use that north corner for a slightly larger monument sign in exchange for the southwest corner being reserved for the city sign. And Walmart was great to work with. We chatted about this, found a way to get this all to fit. Now, the reason why it's before the council is because a sign permit is typically just a administrative approval process through staff. But in order to come to this outcome, we offered some exceptions to our signage ordinance, some variances, if you will. And so state code allows for us to grant exceptions to our existing language if it goes through a legislative review process, meaning it needs to go to the planning commission to be reviewed, have a recommendation, and then come to the city council as the legislative body to grant those exceptions formally. And so what we believe is this is a good win-win compromise where everybody kind of gets what they need and want, where we share that space and share those interests. So there's a site plan. This is a signage plan, which Walmart will use to move forward with any signage that they build on site. But there's also a development agreement that spells out exactly what the city is granting in the form of an exemption. And the two items that are being exempted is that reader board up on the canopy. We typically don't allow for those. And also the monument sign on the north side is a little bit bigger and taller than would be traditionally allowed. Given the scale of the business, the size of that monument sign feels like it's in balance with the size of what's going on there. So if you guys have any questions or any clarifications as to what we're looking at doing?
Can we
Yeah.
make our sign taller?
So our sign, so that's in the agreement. It's 5.5 feet tall and 23 feet wide is that window of opportunity, which,
That's the size we can go.
yeah.
What about the plants? How high will those go?
Yeah, so landscaping would be capped at 5.5 feet as well.
Or do you want-
So
do you want
wanting not to
plants?
cover their canopy behind, we wanted to make sure that the sign was big enough for good attention, but not big enough to where we're covering their canopy and blocking that view of the business behind.
So the height of the sign is 5.5 feet and you're allowing the plants to also get to be 5.5 feet?
So we use some bushes, but no trees.
Well, won't those plants cover the North Logan?
We'd probably put them to the side. or
I think
anything
that's
in
just
front
kind of
would be
a
sure.
rendering, right? Like,
Yeah.
Well,
Like
no,
that
it's
and-
just, I've seen other cities that have not thought about what plants they're putting in and then
They get
it
too tall.
covers,
Yeah.
covers the whole.
let's not do that.
So we're
Yeah.
capped at 5.5 feet tall on the sign. So whatever landscaping we decide to put in would need to take that height as the variable to work with.
Is that guy also always going to be standing next to the sign?
Yeah, he's just standing, he's part of the ambiance.
Problem
Make
is,
sure.
The picture is clearly from June or July and he's wearing a coat.
I know,
Like, there's
that's
all kinds-
very
It's a bit
suspicious.
awkward, isn't it? Yeah.
So a couple of questions, Scott, aside from mayor's concern about the individual walking on the sidewalk there. So under the current changes happening here, would Walmart have to replace that pylon sign?
So the pylon goes away.
But I'm saying if we weren't negotiating signs, would they still have to remove that sign because of the changes to the frontage?
Yeah, they're only allowed to have one monument or one, we call them freestanding business signs. The pole sign that's there now is their freestanding
Yeah.
business sign, and they're allowed to have one on the frontage. So they could have just left that there without
That's what
any
I'm trying to get at.
changes.
Okay.
But we said, hey, you guys are kind of updating the aesthetic of everything, and we can't keep this pylon and have another
Yeah.
corridor sign.
So the reason I ask is if we made an exception for a little bit larger on the monument, I'm completely in favor with that to get rid of that pylon sign. So I think
Yeah.
that's a good counter negotiate or a good.
Yeah, this will look so
compromise.
much better.
It just brings it up to time. Yeah.
What's the soonest we could realistically put in our own monument
Yeah.
sign there?
As soon as we'd like. So the way that the agreement reads is that we have the discretion as to when we want to put it in. One of the things we've kind of talked about is perhaps making sure that we have a coordinated design aesthetic across all of our signage. So whether that's at this location on the north entry to, from Hyde Park heading south, whatever signage we find there, any of the entry corridors we want to make sure is coordinated. So there's branding and recognition. People, they recognize, okay, we're now leaving Logan, we're now entering North Logan, or we're leaving Hyde Park, entering North Logan. So we need to go through that design exercise first. This rendering is, just to show scale and, generally what it will look like. But there's also, do we keep the same logo? Is this a time to maybe update our logo? I don't know. We've probably gone through that exercise many times over this past several years, but
So
I thought that ones were fairly.
he's bringing
new.
up key
Yeah.
aspects. It really is what is the wayfinding design, which will come about through the general plan process. Just so you know, this is I applaud Scott for going through this process
Yeah.
though, just personally, just to see that he negotiated something that is fantastic, that brings that wayfinding to North Logan City, so we can really announce that they are entering our city. Just so you know, there is a similar agreement for the car wash on 2500 North. So
Yeah.
if you get up to Judge's Car Wash, there's a similar agreement for a similar sign. We want those two signs to look very similar and to tie into the other signs, how to say, they don't have to look identical, but to have a similar feel and a similar notoriety and something that you can actually read.
That'd be great.
Arterial
We also
spots.
have one
Probably a
that's
good idea.
sinking and we have one that
Yeah.
someone hit last year. So
Yeah, we used to have about 8 to 10, just so everyone knows, and
Yeah.
several of those have been taken out by impaired
I missed that one on
drivers.
1600 East.
I know.
The wood
Yeah,
one.
each of those have been taken out by an impaired driver. Though, but we would revamp
Gone.
those. They look nice so that they tie in. Something that ties into North Logan's history is what we're trying to capture and really promote North Logan. The other question with these is two things. When we install this is really a question of that wayfinding process and the design where the council is involved in that and the planning commission. But number two is financially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
It
was
can be pretty
asking.
pricey and you don't want to go with I don't know,
Yeah.
a sandstone.
Oh, Samson.
A sandstone
to, like, pick
conveys
one.
temporary.
Yes.
you'd be amazed how much these things cost. It
Yeah,
is.
rough idea.
excess.
Oh, I'm
That's why I was wondering if
Yeah,
we'd been
what is-
saving for that already if we had a.
What is a
budget
rough
allocated.
idea of what we could expect?
So I did some signage in Weber County and they were just, pole signs. There weren't anything too spectacular and they're like 20 grand a piece. I would
gosh.
expect these to be
3 times
50.
these, Yeah.
oh my
ish.
gosh.
So we have coordinated
Was that in
power.
sandstone? Can't use
No,
the
that was
piece for
in
that?
like a stainless steel. So not cheap materials, but it's not like they were like kind of like UDOT signs.
Hmm.
So they're expensive. We need to find a funding. There might be some, maybe some
Grant,
grants. We'll see if we can go
something.
after it,
Okay.
but So a couple things we need to line up.
Okay, well, you've done really great work on this. I know that that Walmart didn't just acquiesce immediately, so I appreciate that you've come to this compromise.
Sure.
Any other questions on this, council? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve a master site signage plan and development agreement for the Walmart frontage with Highway 91.
Okay, motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion's unanimous.
Thanks, Scott.
Next, we'll be talking about consider approving a concept plan for the Nash subdivision, a lot split standard subdivision in the R112 zone at approximately 1285 east, 1500 north.
All right. So let Alan zoom in here. So this is a very basic subdivision. It's a lot split of an existing residential parcel. Some history on this. This parcel is actually two lots. If you look back on the plats dating back into the 70s and later, they had two lots here. And at one point they were merged together. And I would speculate as maybe just for property tax purposes for the time. But the intention here on this concept plan is basically to split that parcel right down the beam into two residential lots. The parcel itself is 0.65 acres. It's in the R112 zone. So the minimum lot size is 12,000 square feet as proposed. Each lot would be a hair over 14,000 square feet. They're also about 105 feet wide, which is about 15 feet wider than the minimum in the R112 zone. And just as this is a concept plan, we're just looking at it, does it meet zoning? Does it have access to utilities? Those types of questions. As you can see in this exhibit here at the top, there's water and sewer in the road, 1500 north there. There's also secondary water in the area. So connecting into those systems wouldn't be too challenging. Unique about this location, 1500 north is one of our few rural road standard roads. So in our transportation master plan, it's anticipated to be, a minimum standard where the boundary line for North Logan City is, you can kind of see it there in that dark black line. That's a half width right of way. So on the north side of that line, that's 33 feet wide. To the south, that's 33 feet wide for a full 66-foot wide road. But the southern portion is in Logan City's jurisdiction, the north side's in North Logan. So it's a unique situation here. And in order to address this, we put together this rural road standard, and you kind of see the improvements on these easternmost lots where we've got about 20 feet of asphalt and then a ribbon curb on either side. Just a very minimal, private lane almost standard. So this is a public street, but it's not a full 66-foot wide cross section. But what would have to happen with this subdivision is we'd have to match that standard along the full frontage for that 33 feet wide. So that's what we would anticipate from a road improvement standpoint. The rest of the road has an existing 20-foot wide asphalt surface. So that's access in there. There's also a design hammerhead. If you look on the far east side, where the asphalt kind of makes that L shape, that was actually designed intentionally with this past home build, where at the end of the lane, it is a dead end. It needs to have an approved fire turnaround. So that meets the fire hammerhead requirement. So if there is an emergency vehicle that needs to access this location, that was designed intentionally for that purpose.
So is that a home at the end of that drive?
Mhm.
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
So is there ever going to be an opportunity where Logan would come in and finish that road, or is there just zero incentive?
Yeah, I think we will all hope so, especially with the townhome project that they put in just to the south there. But that was not required of that project, and it doesn't look like they have really much incentive, other than maybe we send them a weed letter every year to keep that area maintained as it's in their jurisdiction. I'm not quite sure what their long-term plan is
So
there.
their townhomes, are they primarily accessing it via that lane?
Only from the south. So there's actually no access to those townhomes formally from 1500 north.
Okay,
Yep. I'm sure people
it's kind of
maybe
frustrating.
hop the curb, maybe. I don't know. Is there a fence?
Oh.
Yeah. So in looking at the fire requirements, there is a hydrant on either end. There's a hydrant on the far east side. There's also a hydrant on the other side of 12th East. So they're both within those minimum distances of 300 feet. So there's no additional fire hydrant requirement. It's just making sure that the road is adequate for emergency vehicle turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah. So from a concept plan standpoint, this is just the first, high level review that the city does. We'll come back with a development plan where we'll look at, exactly how they're tying into utilities. What does that cross section improvement look like for the roadway? And then they'll move on to a final plat beyond there. But as it stands, it meets all the zoning requirements. Planning Commission has a positive recommendation and staff does as well.
Because it doesn't need to be rezoned. A quick question with SB 174 going into effect in February, if they don't have a development plan, will they be under those rules at that point?
No,
Or
technically since they've already applied under our
is
existing
it- they would have to
statutes.
follow our existing
Mhm.
statutes. Okay, just.
Yep.
wanna make sure
As long as they
it's-
move forward and they don't let the application expire, they would be reviewed under the existing language.
And then a question I have that's not directly related to this concept plan, which I don't have any concerns with. There have been some drainage issues with those townhomes because of the slope. Have we seen that drift into that half road? Or has it all stayed pretty contained to the south side of those condos?
That's a good question as far as practical, real world drainage. I'm not sure.
Okay.
With the development plan, we will have a grading and a drainage plan submitted as part of that development plan. So we'll be able to look at this site specifically. But adjacent drainage is not typically addressed
Right,
through
yeah,
a subdivision application.
So just to go over drainage, yes, that would be a question that should be brought up as the development plan's coming in. Because we don't want to make any problem worse than it is now. And I just realized you can't see my mouse. I have to change the settings. But 12th East, if you think of 12th East coming down this hill, back in the day, this used to have a lake up at the top of 12th East that would all start draining down the hill.
Yeah.
It would keep coming this direction and it would just come straight into North Logan. And really cause a large flooding concern down at the bottom in every rainstorm, especially heavy rainstorms. There is a drain right here on the west side of 12th East. That drain goes all the way down through this property and into this is USU's property. You can't see my cursor, but it ends up in that canal on the west side. These drainages over here, as you mentioned, Buzzy, there has been a lot of problems. There's actually springs in this area. And this side of that fence that you're talking about does have some drainage issues. So it's something that probably just needs to be brought up as a concern. How do we do this? The rural road standard has a flat curb on it. And so it'd have to be in a swales on the side of the road where it is contained and addressed. There is a canal pipe that runs along the south side of this roadway, you could call it,
On
north of the
15th?
fence. That was the canal pipe that was used to pipe the upper canal to the middle canal. So the upper canal is basically above Lundstrom Park, the Logan Hyde Park Smithfield Canal. That pipe comes down through this area. Do you remember what size it is? Like a 24 or 36? 48.
Wow.
Double that. So it's a 48-inch pipe that comes through that area and then it discharges to the middle canal and actually back feeds into Logan City. Back feeds to the Logan and Northern Canal right there. And that's how they get water to that canal. And
Is that
so
the start of that middle canal?
Just to the west there.
it used to
Yeah.
start down on the island, but after that flood
Yeah, after
occurred,
the collapse.
the collapse occurred. It comes to that point and back feeds into Logan through the canal.
Oh.
And then it's actually piped through that area. It ties into that pipe system.
Cool.
But sorry, these are all just elements of the stormwater system that goes through this area and hopefully it provides a little bit of context to this area.
Okay.
I will motion to approve the concept plan for the Nash subdivision. We probably have to add more
Did you
language.
guys
to this.
have
Oh,
something did you guys have
wanted
any
to
input?
add?
Just hold on just a second. If you have something, I'd be
comment.
happy to let you just come up to the mic.
You got to be on record.
Just say your name before you start.
We typically just kind of give you a couple minutes.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, no, we're just the neighbors that back up the homes to where this lot split. So we're just more curious as to what the plan is, what would go there,
Mhm.
if they're gonna build a home to rent or a home to buy. This is becoming, that street has quickly become like a rental district.
Mhm.
So that's just a little bit of concern as to what's going on there, but
Most of those are rentals now. They're not owned.
yeah, I mean, the Dewey's home is for sale.
Mm.
And then that's a rental. The home here, the Mumfordville home is being rented by the person that's looking to split it. And we had heard that they just wanted to build another home for a rent there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the condos behind. And the condos have actually been a lot better than what we had suspected. You hear the students every now and again, but it's not as bad as what we thought.
Mhm.
And then I'm just curious as what the parking situation is on that, because there's parking. I know that's Logan City for the most part, but there's tons of parking that overflows from that, especially in the wintertime. There's nowhere. for
On
us to-
15th or on 12th?
They park all along 12th and then up and down 14th, believe it or not.
Oh.
So on
I've seen
12th,
that.
we would enforce that November 1st, obviously,
Just north of the boundary.
north of
though.
the boundary.
Just north of the boundary though, yeah.
line.
So yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, that's. at
So we're
least-
just here to hear
Yeah.
what the idea is and the concern.
Yeah. And it sounds like we really don't know
Yeah, they don't
that
know that.
far. This is, concept is the very earliest, just to kind of say, what would the layout be?
Just one other thing you talked about a little bit. I'm curious, like this last rainstorm we had, there is a ton of drainage problems. There's like that road, I don't know who came and cleaned it up, but it was covered in all kinds of gravel that washed down through there at the end of 1500. And then also, actually, I think who's our neighbor that got flooded? On the west side? Came down our road, which is 1550, and it flooded the Murdoch's home.
Yeah, the reason I asked that actually is because on this 1500 north, if there's some kind of drainage issue, we got to hold Logan accountable for that.
Yeah.
If it starts impeding into the city boundaries, then that's a good way for us to go after them and say,
To do something
Yeah,
there,
Is
yeah.
there a way that we can assess Logan's drainage as part of this at all, or is there a way we can do it, or do we need to do it separately?
It-
it's at least worth it.
It's unrelated and it wouldn't apply to what this application is dealing with, but it is a larger city issue. It's
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
we've sat down with Logan 2 or 3 times in the past several years. They added several drains up by the cemetery where the lake would fill up in the middle of
Yeah.
12th East. And then they've added drains
Remember
down
that.
this road with this subdivision coming in. It has helped the problem, but not solved the problem. And so any water coming down, this is Pheasant Run subdivision, or any of these other subdivisions, we could handle it if it was a perfect world where it was just those subdivisions coming down. We can't handle it if there's extra water coming in from other things. So we do need to probably have a conversation with Logan City regarding that.
One thing the condos did do well, they did put that fence that I told you about. It's like
Yeah.
one of those concrete
Mhm.
fences that
Oh.
otherwise I'm sure there would have been parking along there
Yeah.
to get into
Yeah.
the condos, but that's not a problem. They put a really nice fence in there. But anyway,
Yeah.
for the
So,
Toolers,
okay,
and this
great.
is our neighbor Joe Crum. We have the 3 homes. I have the vacant lot, the second one in, and then, yeah, and then that's my home, and then Joe's is the one next to that.
You guys each own 2 homes on that road? Oh, did I hear that wrong? Okay,
He
sorry.
owns the vacant lot.
This lot and that one, this is Joe's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so see our.
Your backyard.
Yeah. And that, I'm assuming that it's split about halfway. We would back up to this, whatever's gonna go.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's at least maybe a takeaway is that if you do have parking problems, if you're complaining to Logan, that's probably the way to go on that one. And then that's a good note for us to say, if there's continues to be drainage, that's probably more of a city function to say, hey, Logan, we've got to have you participate in this. So any other questions from?
Well, I just think it might be worth Scott just explaining
Yeah.
how, concept is very basic and we're kind of tied, but what the next steps are so that when we actually do see what's going to happen and what
Yeah.
we can act on.
Yeah, so this application is just for splitting up the land. It has nothing to do with maybe a future development of a home. I anticipate there will be a home, otherwise why would we be splitting it? So that's a fair assumption. The privacy trees, we can all hope that they keep them, but it is, landscaping on a privately owned piece of property. They have the ability to adjust that as they see needed. I'm hoping that most of those trees will stay put, especially along that northern boundary. As a footprint of a home likely won't impact those trees to the north.
Take them to
but-
dinner.
But as part of this process, we can't obligate them not to touch the landscaping, and we can't obligate them to, build a certain type of a home. State code actually prohibits us from telling them what type of a home they can and can't build. So those are all, assumptions that we have.
But they will have
They'll be-
requirements based on the zoning.
Correct. Yeah, they'll have to
Like
meet
setbacks.
setbacks.
Family.
Single
what-
family.
Height.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They won't
And
be able to
as
build
far
those.
as the rental.
Yeah, they won't be able to build an apartment complex.
Yeah,
so.
it's all single family zoning. But as far as the rental status, anybody can build a home and rent it long. term.
Yeah.
That's
We
a tough
don't
one.
really control that.
That home is awfully close to the setbacks, honestly, on that.
Yeah, if you go to the plat, the way that the boundary line is drawn, they make sure to abide by, the zoning
just inside.
setbacks. There's a little
That
call out.
corner.
Yeah, they're actually exceeding it by 5 feet. So it's a 15-foot setback. Right here.
And you don't have any. Yeah, that garage.
Detached garage.
Yep, so the garage is 9 feet away. The way that our ordinances read is is that 9? That might be, so the easement there is a 10, well, it's a 5 foot easement, that's right, yeah, so it's
So
about
it's
9
seven
feet.
point 3.5.
Well,
Oh,
Yeah.
from there, 9.
Looks like it's 9.
there's a 5 foot utility easement that they're proposing. The minimum setback is 6 feet for a detached building, so both of the existing structures abide by existing setback requirements.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks
Yep,
for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Yeah.
No, we appreciate it.
So I would entertain a motion on this.
So motion to approve the concept plan for the Nash subdivision. Remind me, we have to add some additional language here, right?
Facts,
So
findings and conditions
with facts, findings and conditions as presented by city staff
in the staff report.
in a staff report.
Phenomenal, Buzzy. Motion by Buzzy,
I'll second.
second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll jump right to updates regarding SB 174.
Okay, more fun stuff. So we've been working on this for a little bit, mostly internally. Staff's been we're wrapping our heads around what we all need to do in our ordinances to comply, and there's quite a bit of changes that we're having to make. And we do have some help. Our consultant that was selected for the general plan, they're actually also a consultant in a pool that the state has approved for help with this particular topic. And the state just released some technical funding, which basically means that we're eligible for $14,000 of technical assistance, what we can kind of tack on to the scope of our general plan consultant. So we'll lean on them to help us out a little bit with this, but we do still need to discuss it, make some decisions from a policy perspective as to how we want to address this within the guidelines that we've been given by the state. So just for a quick overview, the way that this works is it requires all cities and counties throughout the state of Utah to change the way that we review residential subdivisions. So it's for any single family, 2-family, townhome types of dwellings, not multifamily, not commercial, institutional. Those are aside from this. But all residential subdivisions, we have to go from a 3-step process down to a 2-step process. Our process right now is concept plan, preliminary plat and development plan, and then final plat. So 3 phases. The way that they're requiring us to change this is to just go to preliminary plat, final plat. No concept plans. We can't even mandate that they have a pre-application meeting to make sure they have their ducks in a row. They can request one. We'd be happy to give them a pre-app meeting just to make sure things go smoothly, but we can't obligate a developer to do so. Another big change is we cannot have the city council act as the land use authority on subdivision applications. So you guys will no longer see subdivisions come to you in your agenda. It has to be administrative, either through staff committee, or planning commission. Those are the only options. So, and then the other biggest thing is we only get 4 review cycles, and we can choose how we want to split those reviews up between preliminary and final, but we can't exceed 4. And the way that it works is, as part of your first review cycle, you give them all your red lines, say, here's how you comply, here's how you don't comply. They have to revise and resubmit. And if they don't revise per the red lines that the city gives them, then we can say, if you haven't resubmitted sufficiently, you need to fix a few more things to submit. But every time that they've complied with red lines, we've expired one of our review cycles. We only get 4 from start to finish. And there's also shot clocks. So for us to be able to review their first preliminary submittal, we only have 15 business days to get our first review done. And that, I think, is really challenging for a smaller community such as ourselves, where we have one planner, we have a planning commission that, yeah, we do meet twice a month. Some cities only meet once a month, and that's even harder for them. But even still, it's tough with only 15 days to turn around a very substantial, detailed first review, because we don't want to let one of our review cycles go past without catching everything possible. It puts a lot of stress, I guess, on whatever we want to designate as our administrative land use authority to turn around a review in that amount of time. So those are the biggest changes, kind of the highlights here. We do have some decisions to make that we are able to work within. So we need to designate who is our administrative land use authority, and they do give us leeway to make that choice. It could be as simple as a single staffer. It could be multiple staffers that make up a committee for basically a staff Development Review Committee, or we can use the Planning Commission as that land use authority. So that's a decision we can make. We also can decide what it is or what constitutes a complete application. So when people are submitting for a subdivision, we need to be able to say, is your application complete or not? If it is complete, that's when those timelines start kicking in where we have to get a review turned around. If their application is not complete, we can kick it back to them and say, no, it's not complete. You just supply more information or, address a few items before we can accept it. So that's one thing that we'll have to do. And I suspect we'll have to have a very robust application checklist and use that to our advantage. So we get everything we need ahead of time before we start reviewing. So that's one decision point. And then we can decide how we want to split up our 4 review cycles. If we want to front load it all with preliminary and then have a single review for final, or split it down the middle, or, backload the final plat review. That's up to our discretion. Another one is whether or not we want to allow for public comment. This is an administrative type of review process where public comment isn't typical. Typically, we have public reviews and public hearings when it's legislative in nature, when we're making new policy, we're changing the ordinances, or we're making new requirements. Where this is an administrative process, we're simply just trying to verify if their application meets our code. But the state has kind of said you may have public comment, you may have one public hearing and no more. So we can make that decision if we want to keep it open to the public. And then we can decide an appeal board, who makes up an appeal board. That's about all the decision making we are granted through this process. What it does is it makes things very quick, and it makes things very, I view this as going to be very controversial, because we're going to have to keep kicking applications back to a developer. They're going to have to spend a ridiculous amount of money just to get through the door for us to review anything, because we're not going to accept anything until it is very substantial, very complete, very detailed, which just costs a lot of money. They're going to be paying their engineers a lot of money just to get the application to us for review. So it's a disservice to the development community. It's a disservice to the city, to the public. It's a challenge for sure.
It feels like an overreach to
Oh,
me, and
yeah.
I think there's so many oversights that can happen from this.
No, they didn't.
I have to admit, I err on the side of wanting to allow public comment, because I think tonight was a really good example of
Just understanding what are the concerns.
their concerns are valid, and they also brought up a really good point for us as a city to look at. And while it doesn't really have to do anything with this development, I kind of do like getting the public comment.
Yeah, I'll add to that.
I feel bad though, because I'm not signing up for public comment. I'm signing up somebody else for public comments. Like, and I do
The
feel bad about
problem
that.
is that that's somewhat counterintuitive, because when you have public comment, but you can't act on that public comment, it is so frustrating. I think
Yeah.
it can tend to have the opposite effect, where it's like, yeah, we'll let you talk all day long. We will not listen to anything that you say, but we'll
But-
jump through that hoop.
So at first I was thinking the public comment was going to be a waste of time, as I thought more about the history over the last 6-ish years where we've reviewed some of these. There's probably been a handful of times where developers have made some changes because of public input where they weren't required to.
Mm.
So I think there was like a signage issue at one point, like, yeah, we could do that. We could spice that up, and they did. Or there was some color contrast and tree conversation. So that is the benefit of the comment, that if the reasonable voices that come in and say, these types of trees have proved to be problematic. I know we have some code in place now, but these are good examples of where developers there are a few out there that, have made some changes based on public feedback, and maybe we can direct the conversation more that way. If
Yeah,
we
and
allow it.
Hopefully developers are open to working in good faith with the neighbors to find a way to mitigate maybe some
Yeah.
of their concerns. We do have developers that want nothing to do with the public, and they just want to, design
Yeah.
for the guideline and move on. But if we can foster that relationship between the public and, new development, I think that's fantastic. I wish that there was a way to do it ahead of our review process so that they can actually incorporate it into their design. The way that we're having to do this is we're saying you have to have this thing literally buttoned up and 100% designed before you even send it over to us for review.
Well, and I just think about the couple of developments that we shot down because they were just like at a concept, it was just like, this is not going to work at all. And I do worry that there are people who are going to spend a ton of money.
But so Mike, just a point of clarification. Sorry, Alan. so if there's like a request for a rezone, that would still be a
Totally
legislative
different.
function that because those are that's the ones that you're talking about.
You're right.
This is just where it's administrative. And that's where I always lean on the side of public comment. But like I said, I think that there's also another side to that sword, which is that we look like we are deaf.
So
No, and you're
One-
not wrong, but I feel like that there's a feeling already that there's like, well, you guys aren't listening anyway. And I just think if we can show like, and maybe this is because tonight worked so well, but I feel like we've had many administrative conversations with people where it's a little bit in planning commission and stuff, where they've had like a little bit of, this is how the way works, and people have come away understanding a little bit more. That won't be every conversation.
I like your can-do attitude. Alan?
So everyone brings up a valid point, and hats off to Scott for going through this process. He's a little ahead of the curve. He's actually kind of leading the way on going through and trying to get things lined up for going through checklists of what we have to do. This is going to be an utter nightmare for Scott. Like literally, they're going to come in and it's going to put the city in a bad position. We're going to look bad. This is an attempt from the state to pit the developer against the city directly, and it's going to be tough. They're going to come in because right now we sit down 20 times with every developer, not this previous one, because that was a very easy subdivision, but other developments that come in and we literally guide them through the process. We go through every step. We are there kind of holding their hand to take them through the process. And the public, while there isn't a public hearing generally, except in the city center now in our code, the public, they do have an opportunity to come to meetings. My personal feeling is, Emily kind of stated it the way that I'm thinking. I would love to see it go before the planning commission. But in the discussions that happened in the last planning commission, it has to be a very clear upfront portion to a public hearing in that meeting where you specify what the role of the public's comment is going to be. Are they meeting the code? Do you see any way in which they're not meeting the code? Have we missed anything? 99% of the time, Scott's going to catch everything. He's nearly perfect in his review. But there's going to be a 1% that might sneak through. The other reason I want to see that is literally it's an opportunity for the city who has been painted as someone who's anti-development, anti-growth, anti-anything. It's an opportunity to literally explain to them that this has been mandated by the state. This is our process. This is how we have to go through this, and to state that very openly. And I think people appreciate that. While they get a chance to comment, it can't be about things that are opinion, taste, anything across the board.
And that's not nothing. I agree with you. Like I want to have public input, but I'm just saying it puts a ton of burden on the planning commission chair and on staff to make sure that we stay within those boundaries, because saying I don't like the fences that they're going to put in, or like even tonight, you know, if we had a whole room that's saying we will picket if they don't keep those privacy trees up.
So
Like you just have to frame it, I guess.
that's the perfect
Maybe
notion that
that's-
we've had planning commission and chairs in the past that have done that. There have been we've had meetings regarding rezones or other things where people have got up and you always want to let people speak, but after about the third or fourth comment that was very disparaging towards the city staff, saying the city staff was coming in trying to sneak in a rezone or talking about something along those lines. I've seen the planning commission chair stop the meeting and basically say, just a reminder, this is an application and we reviewed it administratively. This is what you're looking at. And they remind them constantly. And the meeting seems to go along a little bit more smoothly.
So maybe it's a training.
But it's a training. One thing I want to push back on though, the state is literally attempting to have subdivisions fly through by the seat of their pants. That is the goal of this entire bill, is to fly through, very little review, get as much
Agreed.
housing in as possible, and very little public involvement. Now, there isn't a lot of public involvement right now, but my pushback would be, state, if you're going to do that, I would like to push back and say, public, we would like you to be involved.
Well,
in
that's-
some way, shape, or form.
So
Just
this
to
is kind of when-
cling to the amount of public
Yeah.
hearing we have.
But the other thing on the public comment on this is, if we determine that we're going to allow public comment, is that by subdivision or is it in our code now moving forward until we decide to relook at that? Because, and here's why. This is going to take a ton of education.
Yeah.
And so the public comment period is actually a time to educate. So we'll get people in the room. And I think to your point, if you guys have a well-written script about how this process works, as we go through the first handful of these after February, you're now educating a room full of people every time.
Probably something
To
up on the
understand.
screen, like you
Yeah.
just post something very large up on the
Yeah.
screen, and say, this is the role of this public comment because the state has given us.
Under
these
State Bill
parameters."
170 or
Yeah.
Bill
Just like when we do
174.
public
Yeah. the
hearings,
past.
You know, where they're like, this is not the time for a conversation, like, so, I mean, just constantly bringing it up.
And I think it's both with the commissioners and or city council, like I welcome any amount of tutorials that you can give us. But I think it'd be good to just kind of develop something that's pretty succinct that we can bring out every time that we talk about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
from a planning perspective, we always want the public's input, especially when we're making legislative decisions, and that's where the
Sure.
public input is. Like in the general plan, we want as much public opinion as we can. We want it enough to where it's going to be hard to sort through it all because there's so much. That's where the public really changes policy, changes the trajectory of our land use patterns, makes decisions for vision and outcomes. When it comes to subdivision ordinance, that has been distilled all the way down to here's the letter of the law. Do you comply? Yes or no? So the public hearing side of things, that's tough to have a public hearing when there's not a lot of public input that could benefit at that point. But, you know, just for transparency and making sure people know what's coming into town and what is going into this area, and they're not just curious about it. There is a public venue. I think that's where the planning commission acting as this administrative land use authority makes a lot of sense. The public hearing stuff, because there's going to be a lot of education to both the public and the planning commission, because the planning commission, they cannot act outside of their administrative bounds. So they can't have any public clamor clouding their decision making or altering a decision that, you know, if it meets code, it has to be approved.
Yeah.
That can be tough for a planning commission chair to wrangle a crowd that is not too happy about something that is a property right of the applicant.
Yeah.
Does the planning commission have any thought on the public comment or hearing for subdivisions?
They have, yeah. So we talked about this last week and they're on board for having a public period,
Okay.
keeping the planning commission as that administrative land use authority. They haven't made a formal recommendation because we're still working through the mountain of red lines we're going to have to do here. This literally is so impactful that it's almost worth just scrapping the entire subdivision ordinance and starting
Yeah.
over because
Yeah.
the red lines just get unsurmountable.
Okay.
So
to
Scott,
read through and understand.
sorry, if we did agree, or if we said, yeah, let's do public comment, at what point can we change that if we decide that?
Anytime it's a legislative change, we have to go into
Yeah.
the code and change that. So we would write into the
That's a good
subdivision
point.
ordinance that the plan, well, then maybe the way that we write it into this proposal is that the planning commission may at
That's
their,
what I would
Yeah.
say, is
their
you give them that
discretion.
option.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think it'd be good if there's things that are inconsequential, like a one lot subdivision,
Good
Yeah.
point.
that you waive that, or that you make a discretionary decision.
I'm wondering about, you bring up a very good point, Buzzy, about this is probably going to have to change regardless. Not just that one item that Buzzy brought up regarding the public hearing. I see this changing legislatively, the city council making several changes over
Yeah.
the first year of just saying, that didn't work with that subdivision. We've got to adjust this. This didn't work. It's going to be a constant.
yeah.
And I think that there are
Change
going to be
method.
changes that come down from the legislature. I don't think
yeah.
that they truly understand the impact of this. And
No.
so I think we're gonna see some reaction from the legislature
I
during the
hope it is a
session.
positive reaction.
This is much worse for the developer and the city.
I know.
I don't
It
think
is-
I think,
It
yeah,
is much worse.
it wasn't vetted well enough. I think developers are gonna be
Yeah.
like, as they start using it.
The big ones
what?
will be
Because all of
fine.
a sudden they're gonna find.
Especially
somebody
small developers.
stonewalling
Small
that.
ones will.
One
yeah, that's-
example,
yeah.
think of a 100 lot subdivision near here. Think of how that would have gone
Oh, yeah.
through this process.
Absolutely.
That
It
was
never-
2 years of review
Yeah.
of helping them go through that process. I'm thinking of that going through in a 4-week or a 4 iterative process. It would have been an utter nightmare, and it pits the city against them saying like, sorry, it's not good enough. Like, we'll just keep sending it back to them, which doesn't
It's
instill
going to be frustrating
confidence
for
or
the city there.
trust.
Well, yeah.
The other thing is, imagine if that would have come through with zero public knowledge.
Yeah, that would have been, that's the biggest concern.
It would have just flown
Yeah.
through
So.
It would
maybe
come
we can
for
make
review.
a-
at the planning commission or even just an administrative function per the bill. The state was trying to push the public out completely, and it's done. Yes, I don't think there's much that the public could have done as far as like coming in and saying,
Informed matters.
here's the items. Maybe they would have caught something like the Wildercrest rule that was caught by Buzzy in the Smiling H subdivision. So there's one thing that was caught. I would hope that a member of the public could catch something like that. But the optics of that would have been a nightmare. 100-lot subdivision coming through and flying by the seat of its pants and just coming out and saying, here's the subdivision, everyone.
That
Good
would have
luck.
been an absolute nightmare from a staffing perspective to review that in 15
Right.
days and try to
Yes.
submit some sort of a red line back to them.
That's my
It's gonna
feeling
be a
is
trick.
your timeline's so short. And then just even if somebody on staff is gone and you have that short of a window.
Yeah, how does
Unless-
anybody take vacation?
Yeah,
You know, how do
we
we,
No
Scott
more
takes
vacation.
4
Scott has
Scott
no
gets
more
3 days
Done.
off max per year.
right?
It has-
Never.
I,
That's actually a great point. So
Well,
question, Scott, how are you so I wrote down this note, so we're pivoting just a little bit, but the city councils are going to be out of this.
Mhm.
How are we going to inform city councils still of the subdivisions that are coming in? Are we going to have a standing agenda, item, informational only?
Yeah, we could just do a
No
community
action.
development director report to the council,
Okay.
just a news flash kind of a
Okay.
deal.
it would be nice.
In council where you can show it,
Yeah.
we'll keep our mouth shut.
Do you need answers on some of these, like the
No.
4 review cycles?
No, we're just trying to wrap our heads around what has to change in our language and what, these are the decision points that we can make. And so we've had this conversation with planning commission. They've started to wrap their heads around it a little bit, but we haven't made any formal recommendations. There's some nuts and bolts just from a paperwork process that I'm a little bit concerned about. For example, if we do want to do public hearings, we have to send out notice 10 days in advance. And we have a 15-day review window, and it's
Gosh.
just trying to get the paperwork ahead. So basically, the second that somebody submits an application, we almost have to issue public notice for that next meeting agenda, assuming we're not in the middle of December and we only have one meeting to work with anyways.
Or April, I mean,
April
or
or-
July, I mean,
It's,
Now,
Yeah.
I don't see small developers being able to do this, especially those
no.
that don't have
Mom and
experience.
pops, yeah, no.
The big boys will know.
Mom
They'll
and
have
pop.
staff.
this would be an utter nightmare for them. They can't take it through. We literally almost help them design each one of those. But one point that Scott may want to bring up, and I don't know the details on this, Scott brought this up in the planning commission meeting, is regarding geologic hazards. This last week, I didn't know this. I didn't know a position was created at USU for geotech engineer, kind of for the state to help plan everything. And that's Brady Cox within North Logan City. And he did a review for the emergency response and emergency planning kind of sector of the city. And it was a very well done response. And he talked about geologic hazards, mainly earthquakes, the entire time, and talked about what areas of the city are a hazard. And those are mainly areas of liquefaction. And that's where the sand or the clay and the sand turn to liquid, and a building basically just tips and the whole thing just becomes uninhabitable, basically ends up causing a lot of fatalities in that instance. That is everywhere in North Logan west of Main Street is susceptible to that. In North Logan, we also have about 5 or 6 fault lines that run through the city. They're all east of the Logan Hyde Park Smithfield Canal. That's the East Canal in North Logan City. And so there are also other geologic hazards. Apparently there's an exemption to this bill regarding areas of geologic hazard.
all right.
Oh.
It's almost a loophole to where we can classify or define areas of geologic hazards, and
How
then
do we
they
do
don't
that?
have to abide. So what's hard about that is if, for example, we do the whole bench, we say, okay, anything over 20%, anything with a fault line within a couple hundred feet, liquefaction areas, all those things. Yeah, I don't know that we could exempt the entirety of the city.
We'd give them west of Maine.
Right. But then we have 2 processes. We still have to put this into our code.
Mhm.
And then we have another process, and then we have another process for commercial, institutional, and non-residential. And so it fragments everything to where we can't have just good, orderly, processes that are applicable to each of these review types.
Have you gotten a sense from other cities about like their similar struggles in implementing this?
They, you
They're a
want to know
little
my honest
behind,
opinion?
Well, so that's
They're
what I'm
all staring at
wondering,
each other
though.
like who's going to design the wheel first. Yes.
But I
Who's
guess,
gonna pick it and then we'll all just be like, sure.
but I guess what I'm saying is like,
Yeah.
I'm wondering as this nears implementation, is there going to be enough of an outcry from, particularly from cities our size or smaller.
Yeah.
To say like, you have got to give us more time on the ramp up.
I have been hoping that they would announce an extension on the deadline, but I've asked a few folks at ULTC and or CT, and they don't think so. They think they're going to stick to their guns on this, and
they got
it's
Spencer's
going to be a
number?
train wreck.
Yeah, you got Spencer's number. You
Yeah.
guys are
I'll call him.
So I don't know. Maybe there's an extension. Maybe there's a special session and the legislature readdresses this. I don't know. What I do know is the state literally just this last week finally released the technical assistant funding that they had promised with this bill for consultants to start helping communities with these changes. And there's a pool of consultants. It's only like 5 consultants for the entire state that are approved for this funding. And they just released it. And there's 2 or 3 months before the deadline for most of us. The deadline is out to December of 24 for some of the real small cities. But for most of us, even us fourth classers, we're due in February. So I think that there are some benefits to this in the sense that we're going to clean up our subdivision ordinance. We're going to digitize our application process, which we've needed to do for a while. So it's kind of forcing us to do that and modernize, but that's about all I can see as far as benefits here. It's a trick. Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Okay.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do it wrong.
We will. I guarantee
Oh.
everyone's gonna.
Everybody's gonna start coming to Scott from the other cities you want.
I know.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's it. No decision. Just trying to keep you in the loop of what we're working on.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to updates regarding North Logan's water capital improvement projects.
Oh, this is the one.
Change the date on that one. Just some quick updates. Alan kind of touched on a few this morning or just earlier. We have you're gonna all get that lead and copper. Well, you guys won't, Emily might. So it's based upon a category of your house, the age of your house, whether you'll receive that survey or not. We have to have 100% return on that. So it's gonna be,
Required to get 100% participation.
yeah, so it's gonna take us some
How?
time.
Okay.
We're gonna have to knock doors here towards
Who-
the end.
Who's
so-
mandating?
But there's only certain
Federal government.
So there's only certain homes that meet that criteria, though. I think it's about pre-90,
Yeah.
86, somewhere in that range. So we have a set criteria. So you guys probably won't see that.
Are they willing to help staff all that for it?
Nope.
Hmm.
Nope. So one of the things we're working on right now is the water conservation incentive plan. We're putting together some of the paperwork for that so we can start pushing that out to the residents so that they can plan through the winter and think of things to do in the spring and start applying for those grants. The water master plan and model, like Alan said, we're getting close to the end on that. They're starting to run scenarios and starting to write out need analyses and budget forecasting. The other big one that we need to start looking at is the secondary water usage in subdivisions that was passed with no allowance of culinary water used on the exterior. We talked about this at the Growing Smarter workshop, I
Mhm.
believe it was. So we've reached out to the HOAs through the community in those new subdivisions to remind them, hey, you've got to use secondary water, and they're talking to their residents, and we're starting to push that way. And into the winter months, we may start to come back with some different plans. The plant updates at the water treatment plant. We're still working on that, trying to get the DNR and the Division of Drinking Water to finalize what we actually need to have done so that they can let us turn that back on. So that's where we're at now.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Okay, we'll get updates on the Civic Center.
Let me go through that really quick. The
City office.
I know, I'm so excited about it.
It's really good.
So looking at this, they are finalizing the roof, the electrical system. You've seen the parking lot going in. We need to finalize that and a lot of the landscaping, the trees specifically, to meet our code. There's stubbing in the utilities right now. You can see that taking place. And then we're finalizing the furniture plan for the city office. Sounds inconsequential, but it's actually pretty involved. Designing things and making sure that like the council room functions properly by having the right furniture in there. Right, audio, visual, and
Just need a
IT.
chair that make me just taller than Buzzy.
We'll
That's
find
all I
a
need.
tall
Thank you.
chair. booster seat.
I just want.
The community center, the one thing that we have to do is finalize the issuance of bonds, which we're working on with the CIB right now. They should get back to us next week, I believe, or the week after, on what we've submitted to them. They're finalizing the designs right now, going through all the details of the designs itself. Obviously the finalization of selection of materials and other things. We're looking at value engineering options. And then after that, it's really the finalization of donations. There's only one thing left and it sounds very simple. It's really just making sure that donations are lined up. They have a donor wall. They'll probably name some rooms, things of that nature, to make sure that it's financially feasible. But other than that, it should work out fine financially for the city. Sounds simple. It is raising a considerable amount of money.
Can you do sponsorships
something.
of rooms? I did that for the Cash
Yeah.
Back Veterans.
That's what we talked about, naming some of the rooms and also a donor wall.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Let's move on to reports from city officers, boards and committees. Chief, you wanna? Chief, either way.
So first off, I'm pleased to report, I guess, with our two officers that were on FTO, Officers Aguirre and Anderson. If we officially took them off of FTO today, they were able to complete that and they are out on their own now. So that's a good thing for us. As far as updates too, our code enforcement does start Monday. So we're excited for that. We'll do paperwork with them next week and then they'll start meeting with the cities to get that up and running and figure out how we need to best accomplish that. And then for calls, we've had consistently for the last month and a half or so, we've been about the same amount of calls, 121 calls this week. But the thing that's been nice is that our average for our stops and our community engagement that we're doing is about the same. So right now, this last week, we're at 79, which is good. Before we were quite a bit lower there, but it's nice to see the officers out. One thing that we have noticed this last month, we've seen an uptick in crashes. So in the last month, we've had 28 crashes on Main Street. 4 of those crashes were DUI, with one of those crashes being just last week. It was a pretty significant crash there that they dealt with. So we're seeing a lot of traffic and a lot of stuff on Main Street there. So we've been trying to have that emphasis with these stops out on Main Street and have them closer to Main Street to try to curb that. That's kind of where we're seeing right now.
One item, I don't mean to interrupt you on that. That is a very crucial factor. North Logan's been pushing beyond belief to see if we can lower the speed limit on Main Street, reduce some of those crashes and hopefully reduce any fatalities is the ultimate goal. We need to push UDOT on that though significantly. And the only way we can push them is with data. And so if you have any of that data, if you can share with the mayor, potentially we'll have meetings with UDOT in the coming weeks. And we do need to share a lot of that information. This is a very dangerous section of Main Street throughout the state.
It is. We have high speed there, especially in the wintertime. We have snow that adds to that.
Yep.
And it gets worse, it seems like. So we'll start compiling that. It was interesting as we were looking at numbers this week that's what we saw on that. So
It's a lot.
Turn signals that are not functioning, because that was my frustration as I go up and down Main Street even today.
Like where there are turn signals, but they aren't
They don't,
on.
they're not on. And so you have all the traffic coming up and down through 5 o'clock and you can't turn because the light doesn't allow you to turn. So then people are running the red light so that you can get one car through for, each time that there's the slowdown.
Do you have a
So-
contact at UDOT? The 25th North light isn't functioning properly. The other reason it's not functioning properly is the straight through going east to west. I had this complaint from some residents as well, same as like Joni's concerns. The light doesn't last longer than enough to get 5 cars through. So it starts backing up into our light at 200 East, which creates a very dangerous situation. UDOT
That's
needs
where
to
I'm-
adjust that to allow all of the cars to make it through at that point.
I do have a contact for that we can reach out to.
Yeah.
I also wonder about, can we have, this is just a crazy idea, not unlike Buzzies with the stop sign on 12th East, but having the 2 lanes be through lanes, because it does split
Yes.
on the other side of that. And it makes sense to me to push people through, and then you can get people on the right turn
That's a huge.
with
bottleneck.
that flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of clout will come from you, chief. They put a light out on 10th West, which does not warrant a light, will not warrant a
Oh
light
my
for 20
gosh.
to 30 years.
Can we remove that?
But
Oh.
adjusting that light will go far if you can provide that data to them. To say you need traffic to flow through here. This is becoming dangerous because of the way they're operating the light at that
Yeah.
point.
So who controls the intersection 2500 North and Main? Is that city? Is that,
That's
that's not a
UDOT.
UDOT road?
That's UDOT.
It's the main, is it though?
It's UDOT.
The entire 2500 North is UDOT?
That's state highway through there. US
Going
91.
west.
So they-
I'm talking, so I'm sorry, if I'm on 2500 North going west before Main Street, is that still UDOT ownership?
No, it's everything west of Main Street.
So can't we as a city, to the mayor's point, commit those 2 lanes to go through?
No. It has to
Because it's
tie
like
into
a
the plot.
UDOT
UDOT
still has to-
intersection.
They have to do
So when
it.
they have the intersection, they own all
Yeah.
lanes into the intersection.
That's a very good point. Yes, it's kind of ironic that it's not east of there, but yes, they have to tie in their light to make that function the way that they want. And we can't change that.
Or we can and not tell them.
But
I'm
sure.
just kidding.
I could reach out to UDOT though and try to,
Yeah.
well, number one, would it be beneficial if we tried to have a meeting with the city and you guys
Yeah,
on that?
if you could set that up and just say, these are very serious. They don't seem to listen to us when we bring these items up, but the police department would probably have more clout at that point.
Go get them cheap.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Maybe guys
Perfect.
Spencer's-
I'll just bring it up with Spence as well, just to cover our bases. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just anecdotally and based on Alan becoming now a seasoned criminal, we've seen a lot more officers in our city
A
and it's
lot
been
more.
great.
My son got pulled over last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Only
They-
the
He
best.
came home, he was like,
Only-
Dad,
North Park has hit both city administrators, just so you know.
We've been fair in that
Yeah,
enforcement
I just-
effort.
No, honestly, chief,
That's as high as you need to go, really.
dude, it was a good experience for him. He said, Dad, I got pulled over coming up past the high school and I was speeding. So I thought they were pulling me over for speeding, but he was like 4 over. So the officer says, well, no, you've got a headlight out.
Oh,
And
Oh,
so,
good.
you know, and my
No.
son's like, I don't even know how to replace those. He's like, son, you need to talk to your dad. That should be like, repair 101. I'm like, you don't know how to replace your headlights. And then I look like the fool, which is true.
oh.
Then
But it was
Buzzy
good. He was
Googled
really
it
like,
and he figured
he
it
was
out.
really, he said he was really nice too.
If an officer had pulled me over, if I was in high school and been like, you have a headlight out, I probably would have been like, I don't know what to do. Like,
Yeah.
'cause
I don't know.
even if my dad had told me, I still would have been like.
A lot of people
So-
don't know that. They don't
Seriously,
realize-
don't get
But
mad at
pass
it.
that along. I think it is good to have that sort
Yeah.
of visibility. It's a real change from how it was even just a year ago.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's nice to see.
We're
Yeah,
excited
good.
about that. So thank you for the feedback.
okay.
Thanks, chief.
Yeah,
Chief.
my headlight wasn't out. I was speeding.
Yeah.
Did you,
Just so you
how
know.
fast were you going over?
He said 12. I say 8. So
That's probably after you hit the brakes.
We get
so.
the body cam on that thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There'll be Christmas
Alan's
party.
like, you suicided down. We've never seen.
I ran until he caught me. It was, I couldn't outrun him.
I got all the way to the
Colorado.
Idaho border. That's when he ran me off the road. That's when he pit maneuvered me.
Okay,
Thank you.
we've
All right.
got to move this along.
So which one of the city council members is an arsonist? We're gonna find out right now.
Yep.
Probably super fast.
Okay,
Everyone knows Chief Hannig's open houses tomorrow at 10. We'll have a flag ceremony. So if you wanted to see, that's actually a pretty cool part of that, our retirement process. So that's right at 10, but if you can't make 10, between 10 and 12. So
okay, great.
it should be super nice for him. Just real quick to go over with you. I know Alan had mentioned the truck. I just want to let you know on our end, it's a lot of moving pieces and parts for that replacement, as you know. We actually got through hopefully 2 more of those this week. We've got a good buyer for one of our reserve engines in Canada. So that was a major piece of the puzzle for us on that. And then we got a bid that looked pretty good for the new truck. So I'll keep Alan and the mayor, apprised of how that's moving along. So we're excited about that because that was a big part of that. And the bid luckily was where we were hoping it would be. And I'm sure Chief Hannig's told you that, a replacement realistically is 3 years. They gave us a 36 to 40 month turn. So we're trying to be proactive there. Where Craig is at, we did have a significant fire this afternoon in west of Logan. And unfortunately, we did have a ambulance that was en route to that crash today, injured 3 of our firefighters. One is in Logan Regional, the 2 are released earlier. So, and Craig's doing the investigation on that fire. The good news is the fire went well, but as we've talked about, traffic it's crazy out there. It's anytime we run lights and sirens, it's super tricky anymore. And then I just want to check as well. I know Jelaine prepares that nice like call summary sheet. So if there's anything there different that you would like to see, please let me know, or more information, or if it's just right, great. But any other questions on that, just let me know.
I'm wondering, she doesn't send that directly to the council. It's kind of dependent on me forwarding it. I'm wondering if we could just have her,
For sure.
and I can get her, maybe I'll just respond to her
Okay.
and just give everyone's addresses.
Circulate that to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Could we
Okay.
get the names of the 3 injured fires too?
The firefighters.
Yeah.
So Tyler Scriber, who was a North Logan volunteer for a lot of years here, actually. He works full-time in Logan now. You had Brandon Wallace and Caden Hartman.
Okay.
Caden Hartman. Yeah. And Tyler was admitted for a head injury and a broken scapula. So he's actually
Oh.
super lucky.
So were all 3 of those in the ambulance?
Yes, it was kind of unique because Tyler was he was at paramedic school. And so we have people backfill them while they're at school. He had just gotten back from school. The fire went out. And so the engine left from Station 71. As he was getting back, the ambulance waited for him, and then they trailed behind the engine.
Oh.
So, and we typically do take an ambulance to
Yeah.
the fire, mainly for firefighter safety, or if victims are injured, obviously at a fire. But in this case, that was kind of unique. But yeah, super unfortunate. So luckily, no one else was injured. And we can replace an ambulance. Obviously, we're super concerned about them. But the other 2 guys are home. So.
And then the last question I have for you is just any update on the chief search, any timeline for a permanent placement?
No, great. So the job opened on the 20th. They'll keep it open till the 20th.
Okay.
And then the word at least I got from Mayor Daines was they're going to try to fill that before the end of the year.
Okay.
So it would be whoever it is, would be January 1. So
Good luck.
thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll do my best for sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thanks, Chief Thompson.
Okay, thank you.
Let us know if you need a referral.
Okay, let's see, so Scott,
Scott, it wasn't done talking to us, I guess.
I don't have much. I just wanted to let you know. So the general plan process, we did execute our agreement with the consultant, and we started formulating our advisory committee, our steering committee is what we're calling it. Very high level committee, just kind of gives general broad direction as some decisions are made, and we kind of steer it through the process with the public and planning commission, city council. So that's what we've done so far. We anticipate through the holidays, so November, December, the consultant will be working behind the scenes, collecting data, preparing surveys to go out to the public so we can hit the ground with a lot of public input in the first of the year after everybody gets back from their festivities and gatherings and whatnot. So that's kind of the plan.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks, Scott. Ryan, anything to say while you're here? No. Scott? Okay, Marie? Alan?
Just a quick update. Thanks again to everyone for Pumpkin Days. Everything that went into that
So
was
good. So good
fantastic.
this year.
Great month of events. Couldn't have gone better. So thanks to everyone that was involved in that. All the different departments. Harry Potter went well. The next events are Operation Christmas Child, I think is what it's called. That's gifts for children around the world. It's organized by the library. That'll take place November 10th. It's actually ongoing until that day. General election is November 21st. QPR night. This is something we organize each year. It is the suicide prevention training. It gives you the tools that you need. It's called Question, Persuade, Refer. And they go through that process with the individuals that attend. It's really well done. The Bear River Health Department puts that together. And thanks to them for coming in and providing that. Employee Christmas parties on December 6th. The RSVP, the invite should go out tomorrow. We'll just let all of you know, and then you guys submit your RSVPs by November 17th, I believe.
Commons area or gym?
The.
We're not ready for the gym.
Buzzy's not invited. So every,
I can't, I was just telling the mayor I can't go.
Everyone else.
First time I'm gonna miss in a long time. I'm sad about it.
And I can't come up with a clip from 1997 or
That's-
8
that's
or
the
whatever.
thing. I'm not going, yeah.
Buzzy,
Dang it.
Brooks is
I'm
gonna
sad
come
about
in.
that.
Buzzy Brooks has a ring to it.
Um,
Garfield
anywho,
Hill.
Silent Santa and Shop of the Cop are the other items coming up, and then the Christmas lighting contest. But those are all the things coming up in the next month or so. Still events taking place, and then there's just endless recreation and library programming that's already taking place. I can't list all of them. They are in the newsletter though.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Alan. All right. Anything from the council? Okay, then I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Emily,
Second.
second by Buzzy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks, guys.